So, pros and cons to every movie situation, I guess. The special effects are basically the one that saved this movie. It's a standout practical effects show, mainly confined to the first parts and the last parts of the movie. It is kind of talky in the middle. A lot of people give this one a bad rep for being talking too much. There's not enough action in the middle of the movie. But that's what really builds the suspense, I think, and it makes it different in its own right. Well, and still staying in line with the zombie tone of his other movies that he made prior. Um, this edition of it, guys, I got to say, is far most the best. I already gushed enough about the sound and picture quality of it. It does have the audio commentary, which I believe is ported in from the Anchor Bay DVD, the DiviMax DVD, I believe it was. An audio commentary with filmmaker Roger Avery. The many days of Day of the Dead, that which is it is the behind the scenes that you want to see. It's got fun film facts behind the scenes. An audio interview with Richard Liberty, who plays Dr. Frankenstein, if you will, in the movie. Um, just all around great movie. I always drag it out at least at Halloween time, and sometimes during the regular season of the year, spring or summer. Just when there's something, I want something different to watch, but not in the mood to watch comedy. I'm in the mood to watch some kind of a brooding zombie flick. I always go for Day of the Dead, mainly because it's just got the great special effects, the good action. It's got great characters in it too, guys. Probably not as good characters as Dawn of the Dead, and even Night of the Dead for that matter. Night of the Living Dead. Day of the Dead still has its good share of great characters in the movie, just not as many of them. Hands down, probably tied for first place with Dawn of the Dead, in my opinion. I've said enough about Day of the Dead, and you've heard this movie being reviewed many a time, so I'm not going to go into the story of it. I highly, highly, highly recommend the Day of the Dead Blu-ray. It's a definite improvement over any other format. Hands down, blows them all away. Go with this one, guys. Let's get a little water. Good for the soul. Let's take a break here and just kind of do a little segue into the latter George Romero zombie flicks and talk just a little bit about Night of the Living Dead 1990. Night of the Living Dead 1990, of course, directed by Tom Savini. We all know, special effects man. A special effects legend, I guess you could call him. Been there, done that kind of guy. He's done it all. It's a very I listened to the audio commentary on this one, and I highly recommend doing that, mainly because it's very insightful. It tells you the reasons why they decided to do a remake, and it has. I think it has George Romero and Tom Savini on the audio commentary, and I gotta say, it totally explains the reasons why. A lot of people say, why remake something that's already good? And my answer to that is the only way I can see doing a remake is if the original is totally forgettable or just not a good movie, which has always been my opinion about The Thing by John Carpenter. It blows the original away hands down. Night of the Living Dead 1990 is a good film all on its own. I'm not going to say it's ever going to be better than the original Night of the Living Dead, but I do like this film. I mean, it's an enjoyable film. I usually end up watching it whenever I'm doing a zombie marathon at some point. Mainly because it doesn't, it takes the original characters, makes some tweaks here and there in the script. What you got to remember is George Romero and a lot of the creative people never did see any royalties or anything for their hard work efforts of the original Night of the Living Dead. So they were the driving force and creative force behind this. I believe George Romero served as an executive producer along with Menahem Golan, who did a lot of Golan Globus productions during that time frame. And basically, so they could get in there, get a little money back, so they could do other projects as well as later zombie films if they wanted to. Gotta say, the special effects in this movie are great. There's some dummy work in this movie that they're blatantly obvious that's a dummy that they're using in those parts. But it's got some faces that you've seen either in other horror movies in the genre or George Romero films. Patricia Tallman plays the lead role of Barbara. Bill Moseley plays her brother Johnny in the opening scenes. The standout, in my opinion, is of course Tony Todd, who plays the Candyman from the Candyman series. He plays Ben in this movie. They amp up the language, they amp up the violence, they amp up the action. But for the early 1990s, that's what it had to be done. I mean, you can't make the same kind of movie during that genre and expect it to be halfway successful. So that's what they did in this movie. That's all I'm really going to say about it, guys, because it is a remake, but it's an enjoyable film all on its own if you just want to watch something different, or if you don't prefer the Night of the Living Dead original. Pick this one because I don't think you'll be sorry. It's got great zombie makeup in it. I always enjoyed it. It's not real big on the blood, though. It's not a big gushing gore blood fest, but it does have good facial appliances and good zombie makeup, I've always thought. So check this one out if you never have. I don't think you'll be sorry. I mean, a lot of horror buffs like it. A lot of people just don't even pay attention to it at all. But it's always up to y'all's impression there, or your interpretation. Okay, folks. Getting into the next era of George Romero. Okay. Well, let's kind of backtrack a little bit here. Let's go back to about 2002, 2003, when the Dawn of the Dead remake came out. I didn't include that in these because George Romero didn't really have anything to do with the filmmaking process of the Dawn of the Dead remake, which is one of the few 2000s remakes that I actually enjoy and I have in my collection. Not because I like it better than Dawn of the Dead. It is not a better film in my opinion. It's just an enjoyable film if you want to watch something different. If you want to see zombies running, fine. If you want to see amped up action in the 300 style, fine. Zack Snyder made a good movie. I'll just tell you that. It's not better than the original Dawn of the Dead, but he made a decent film. I'll just put it to him that way. And he paid homage in different places by getting Ken Faree and Scott Ranger in it, and Tom Savini, in little bit parts. Plus, they showed the little helicopter from the original movie in there. It's things like that make some remakes work, and they're not real big on rewatchability, but that one I think kind of did okay. Well, since it did so okay at the box office, the Dawn of the Dead remake that is, they turned to George Romero, being the big studio that Universal is. In true studio cash-in format, they said, who better to bring forth another? This worked with Dawn of the Dead remake. We didn't ask George Romero to come in and be a creative force in that movie, so let's get him now. So they basically went to George Romero and said, hey, we'll give you a heaping budget this time around. Make a zombie epic that you've always wanted to make, but do it our way. So you have to remember this is going to be the zombie studio film by George Romero. It is going to be a George Romero zombie outing, but it's going to be having on the back burner the studio executives from Universal kind of pulling the strings with the promotional values of the film and the aftermarket DVD and Blu-ray releases of the film as well. They're going to be the marketing push or pull through the whole process. And with that being said, they since Dawn of the Dead remake did good, they slapped George Romero around and said, "Here, take this money and make us a movie." So he took it. And like any filmmaker of his age group at that point, I don't blame him a bit for trying to make a good film. You just got to remember that this one, he missed the 90s as far as making his own zombie film. So this is early 2000s. His social commentary is there. That's in all the other zombie films. And this is in the same universe, quote-unquote, time spectrum universe as the first three films. Now, is it as good? No. I'll be one of those to tell you. Land of the Dead is one of those films. I went to see it at the movie theater, and of course I have the DVD release here. I'll show you that. Basically, I went to see this movie at the theaters expecting a lot because it was very hyped up. It was a big budget approach to his movies. It's what he always wanted. I went to see it at the movies, and I came out of there feeling like, okay, I was entertained. It had John Leguizamo in it and some other notable actors. Asia Argento's in it. And Simon Pegg and made that kind of corny cameo as a zombie and all that, and I was kind of like, well, okay, it was enjoyable. I need to draw my conclusion, like in post-viewing thoughts mode. I had to draw my own conclusion after I've seen it on home video a couple times. Then I'll really tell you if I like it or not. A couple months go by. In true studio format, they release it on double disc with Dawn of the Dead, thinking that they'll cash in. They try to do the double cash in it's just shameful. Universal cashing in on this film, trying to wring any dollar they can out of the project. Uh,